No, never,
Go ahead, Paul.
never.
The preacher must bring the word of God by God permission.
That's
and
right.
when that happened, he's practicing husbandry.
That's right.
Church disagreements are nothing new. Anyone who has spent time in church spaces knows that strong opinions, strong doctrine, and strong personalities often collide. But this particular moment felt different from the start. It wasn't another theological disagreement, it carried weight, emotional weight, and it touched something deeper than a single sermon clip. It began as many things do with the Pastor Gino Jennings doing what the Pastor Gino Jennings has always done. Preaching firmly, if you know him ministry, you know his tone is not soft. He believes in order, structure, biblical hierarchy. He does not dilute his conversation to make people comfortable. And in this particular sermon, he spoke strongly about church leadership, about roles within the ministry, specifically about the woman preaching. He also criticized what that he described as worship that looked more like performance than true spiritual expression. For his followers, none of this was shocking. That the message they signed up for, they believe he defends spiritual without bending the culture present. They respect his consistency. But the sermons does not say inside four walls anymore. Clips started circulating online, short, intense experts, and once something hits social media, context often shrinks while emotion expands. People who had never watched a full Jennings sermon suddenly had 30 seconds to form an opinion. Some viewers said he just teaching doctrine. Others felt that the tone sounded dismissive towards expressive global artists, especially women known for the emotional worship style. And that's when attention slowly turned towards Leandria Johnson. Now, isn't just a singer with a big voice. She has built her platform on vulnerability. She has openly talked about addiction. She has talked about the church rejection. She has admitted to the mistakes publicly. That honestly made many people root for her. She doesn't present herself as a polished or a perfect. She presents herself as someone still growing. So when she went live shortly after those sermon clips began spreading, people were already watching closely. At first, her tone wasn't aggressive. She talked about grace, she talked about restoration, she talked about how church handle people who are still healing. But as he continued, her message became more personal. She revealed that she had once been invited to attend a church event, only to later to be told that she would not be allowed to minister. She could attend, she could sit, but she could not sing or speak. That detail shifted everything because it wasn't theoretical anymore. It wasn't just about doctrine, it became about experience. People immediately started asking questions. Why invite someone and then limit them? If leadership knew her history before extending the invitation, what changed? Was it about theology, public image, reputation, or internal pressure? Within hours, her live session was circulating everywhere. Supporters praised her for speaking up. Others defended Pastor Jennings' right to protect his pulpit. And just like that, what started as a sermon discussion turned into a full blown debate about the authority and acceptance. And it didn't calm down. Screenshots allegedly connected to the situation started appearing online. The wondering suggested her participation would not align with the certain standards. That word standards became the center of conversation. Standards according to who? Spiritual standards, moral standards, or image standards? The lack of clarity fueled emotions on both sides. Supporters of Jennings argued something simple. Every church has the right to decide who ministers from its platform. Leadership carries responsibility. The pulpit isn't open mic night. It's not about the popularity, it's about order. But critics weren't satisfied that explanation. They pointed out something uncomfortable. Many churches preach restoration, but the struggle when the restoration looks messy. If someone is transparent about their past, doesn't that transparency become a permanent disqualification? Is vulnerability welcome in testimony but restricted in leadership? That's when this stops being about two public figures and start touching everyday believers. People begin sharing their own stories. Women talked about being to wait, about being gifted but not platform, about being allowed to serve behind the scenes but not upfront. Others shared the experience of being judged quietly because of visible past mistakes. The debate expanded beyond doctrine into lived experience. Then a gender conversation surfaced. Some viewers began asking whether a male preacher with a conversational past would face the same restrictions. Would standards be enforced equally, or are certain reputations judged or who more harshly depending on who carries them? Those were not easy questions and did not have easy answer. Meanwhile, Pastor Jennings remained publicly silent about her specific claim. That silence created two reactions. His supporters saw it discipline, why entertain social media drama, but others believe even a brief clarification might have the cool assumption before they grew larger. Leandria, on the other hand, continued focusing on themes of healing and freedom. She didn't escalate her tone, she didn't attack repeatedly, but she didn't retract her story either. She framed it as standing up for people who feel pushed aside while trying to grow. As the days passed, more church leaders began weighing in. Some pastors strongly defending firm boundaries, arguing that leadership must prioritize over emotional pressure. They warned the churches cannot allow culture to dictate their doctrine. At the same time, female ministers began speaking more openly about the tension they have felt in the male dominated leadership spaces. They did not always name names, but the message was clear. Limitations placed on women in ministry are not new. The conversation kept widening. Media outlets picked it up, reaction video multiplied, panel discussions framed it as a snapshot of larger debate happening across faith communities. How do churches balance discipline with the compassion? Because that it the really what became about. Discipline discipline versus compassion, authority versus restoration, structure versus space. On the other side, there is the belief that protecting doctrine requires firm lines. On the other, there is a belief that healing sometimes requires flexibility. And the truth is, many churches wrestle with that tension privately. This situation made it visible. Despite all the attention, there was no joint conversation, no public reconciliation, no dramatic showdown. Each continued in their own lane. Jennings studied in traditional structure, Leandria studied in the personal transparency. But the impact went beyond them. Church members began reflecting on their own experience. Some said the controversy strengthened their appreciation for strong, uncompromising leadership. Others admitted it made them question whether some churches' environments unintentionally created barriers for people who are honest about their struggles. And maybe that's why this moment resonated so deeply. It wasn't about shouting matches, it wasn't about scandals. It was about a very tension inside modern church culture. How do you upload standard without appealing clause? How do you preach grace while enforcing limits? How do leaders maintain authority without making wounded people feel permanently sidelined? Those are questions many communities have carried quietly for years. Whether someone sides with the Jennings or with the Leandria often depends on what they personally value more: order or openness, discipline or flexibility, protection or inclusion. But what cannot be denied is that the situation forced uncomfortable conversation into the open. And sometimes, even without a resolution, that exposure alone changes something. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about one sermon or one invitation. It became a mirror reflecting the ongoing struggle within a faith spaces to balance conviction with the compassion. And that conversation is far from over.